I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you about our Hindu religion. I have done this a few times in the past here in Kalamazoo, actually many times. So I'm really pleased to be with you here today, and we can start talking. Um, Initially, if you have any questions, maybe to sort of develop a background information about it. And then I have a presentation and I have also a document that I will be more than happy to email it to you. That will
Okay.
give some more information that I do not have in the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, that sounds great. Well,
Okay.
maybe you could start just by telling me a little bit about yourself and just help me out. How do you pronounce your name?
Pradeep. Pradeep.
Pradip. And your
Yeah.
last name?
Sagdeo.
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 Okay.
Sagdeo. It's
Okay.
spelled by the British rulers of India during the time of my grandfather, which was in the uh, mid 20th century, like in the 1920s and 30s.
Okay.
And since then, the spelling has stuck. So that's the reason for it.
All right.
Okay.
And now,
So
what see from our emails that you have a PhD? What's your PhD?
my PhD is in aerospace engineering.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, I have, but I come from a family with a very strong religious background and upbringing.
Okay.
My grandfather, my mother's father, had a temple, a Shiva temple. In that particular temple, it's called Dakshinamurti, which is another name of Shiva.
Okay.
In the family, owned by the family on the family property. And it is a very major temple in my hometown of Nagpur in India. And throughout the year, there are various religious functions that happen there, and we grew up in that environment. My grandfather and his younger brother taught us to recite and memorize the Sanskrit scriptures, including the Bhagavad Gita and other hymns of our rituals.
Okay.
So that's the background I come from. And naturally, therefore, you might say it's in my genes to follow this particular way of worship and rituals and things of that nature.
Sure.
I've been doing the religious worships for myself and for other people for upwards of 30 years in the United States and Canada.
Wow.
I have performed every major ritual, right from the naming of a newborn to the last rites of the people who have passed away, and everything in between, including the thread ceremony where the young man wears a sacred thread from that time onwards, and the wedding ceremony, and other rituals that are associated with our Hindu religion, like the entering of a new house, the blessing of the new house, and worships, comprehensive worships of various different deities that we perform. Ganesha, Vishnu, Shiva, Durga, Saraswati, the various different gods and goddesses in our religion. So that's the background I come from. I am the one who performed the installation ceremony of the temple here in Kalamazoo in 2001. It was an 8-day program that I conducted all by myself, single-handedly. And it was a massive success. You should see some of the videos that we have of that program. And then for a long time, I did the worship at the time. Even before we did the installation of the deities, I was the officiating priest, so to speak, of the temple. And then after the deities were installed, I did the worships until it became necessary to have a full-time priest at the temple. So now there is a full-time priest at the temple, and I participate in all major events, helping the priest to perform the various different rituals.
Okay. So you said the temple here in Kalamazoo began then in what year? Was it 2003, did you say?
The temple actually began in 1997. But in 2001, we installed the deities in the temple in a more or less formal manner.
Okay.
I mean, it is not exactly according to the scriptures yet, but that will happen in the near future. The While we were conducting our Hindu religious rituals during the period of 1997 and 2001, we basically had our own deities that we used to carry to the temple, perform the worship there, and take them back home. That was the way we carried on in the beginning, before it became possible for us to install deities of the right size for a temple.
I see. Okay. So I don't know if you want to maybe start with your presentation, and then I could ask any follow-up questions. But my first lead-off question was just to ask about the central.
That would be a good thing to do. So if you could let me share my screen,
yes,
then I will be able to show you my presentation. So once again, it's my great pleasure to be with you here today to talk about our Hindu religion. I'm a part of the Indo-American Cultural Center and Temple. I have been their officiating priest until we hired a full-time priest, and now I help out at all major functions. So, as is our tradition, let us begin with a prayer, and this prayer is essentially what is called a peace invocation. Every time there is a religious dialogue between two people in our religion, we usually start with what is called a Shanti Path, or a peace invocation. And the purpose of this peace invocation is to calm the minds of both the speakers, and to create a mental and psychological environment for scriptural study. So I will recite the original Sanskrit that you see here right below. Let us pray, and you can see the meaning of the verses at the bottom in English.
Okay.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May He protect us both. May He bless us with the bliss of knowledge. May we exert together. May what we study be studied well. May we not hate each other. So this is a Shanti Path from what is called Upanishads, a number of Upanishads, and I'll talk about what an Upanishad is in just a moment. So here's a little bit of history about the name of the religion itself. It is not really the original or the correct name of the religion in the first place. The original name of the religion is Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means eternal. Eternal means something that does not have a beginning, a middle, or an end. It always is. And Dharma is really something that needs a little more explanation, which I will do in just a moment also. Now, why is it called Hindu religion? There's an anecdote about it, and it may very well be true. Because there has been in the past, in ancient India, a lot of people moving back and forth between what is today's India and the Western Asian, as well as the Eastern, Southeastern Asian parts of the continent. The Persians who visited the civilization that developed around the Sindhu River, which is known as which is known in the West as an Indus River, which happens to be in the present-day Pakistan. That river was known as Sindhu River in ancient India. The Persians who visited there did not have the S sound in their language, and therefore when they tried to say Sindhu, it became Hindu. And they called the river and the people around it Hindu. And that's how the name of the people as well as the religion came into existence. and it has existed since that time. So that is why we are known as Hindus. Now, the word really is dharma. Loosely translated in other languages, it becomes religion or its equivalent in whatever the language we are talking about. But it is not simply religion in that confined sense, so to speak. And when sometimes people define Hindu religion as a way of life, it is not also a very good as well as a complete description of the word and the word dharma. Dharma is actually a life of duties and responsibilities based on one's abilities and actions with the foundation in ethics and morals. So it is a very comprehensive term that describes not only the religious aspect of the situation, which may involve some rituals and some observances and some constraints, but it also goes way beyond that. It does not remain restricted to certain mechanical operational aspects of a particular tradition. It goes way beyond that. It actually is the essence of human life. And as a result of that, our rishis, as a matter of fact, our God Krishna said that the society consists of 4 different types of people based on their abilities and actions. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I want to emphasize here at this point, it is not the caste system. There is no caste in the Hindu religion. The caste came into existence later on during the British rule, a foreign rule of India. The British divided the society into caste, not the Hindu religion. Now here is the so-called 4-class or Chaturvarna system. Chatur means 4 and Varna means classes system of the Hindu society. The first one, I mean, these are the traditional way of this is describe them in the order. The first one is Brahman. Brahman is the spiritual, intellectual class of the society. They are responsible for the religion, rituals, education, and the spiritual aspects that relate to the society. They were specifically prohibited from accumulating material wealth and spend their energies on carrying out their religious duties and educating the society, both in traditional education as well as religious, spiritual, and other types of education, including the crafts of warfare, building temples, building houses, and many other aspects like the Ayurveda, which is the Indian system of medicine. So their function was to take care of the intellectual, spiritual, religious aspect of the society without worrying about the material wealth, so that they will not be corrupted and will not stray from the path that is their calling, that is their duty. The Kshatriya were the warrior administrative class of the people, and their responsibility was the administration of the society, the law and order within the society, and the protection of the country from external aggression. Now you see a couple of words written there at the end of description for each one of these classes. The Brahmins were known as Sharma. So I'm a Brahman, and I therefore, because my name is Pradip, I would be known as Pradip Sharma.
Okay.
And if somebody, if there is a Kshatriya class and his name is Rajendra, which really means the king of kings, he would be known as Rajendra Varma, the word that you see after the description of the Kshatriya.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. And Vaishya is the merchant and the agricultural class of the society. They are responsible for agriculture, food production, and commerce in the society. And those people were known as Gupta. And I'm sure you may have come across people whose name is Gupta or Gupta.
Sure.
And those are the Vaishya class, and their responsibility is to take care of the commerce and the food production in society. And lastly, but not the least, and by no means the least valued, is the service class of the people. These people perform all kinds of services, including the menial work at home, cleaning up the house, cleaning up the vessels, cleaning up the streets, keeping the society, keeping the environment clean, as well as they perform all kinds of crafts, producing all kinds of goods in the society, and serving the needs of the entire society, including the other three classes. These two classes, Vaishya and Shudras, actually handle the entire wealth of the society. Brahmins and Kshatriya, although they had responsibilities, they were not responsible for handling the finances of the society and carrying out the business of the society. Vaishya and Shudra were some of the richest people at one time in our society. And they were not considered, also, for all the classes here in the society, these were not the silos that were sealed from each other so that people could not be moving from one place to the other. In our Hindu religious literature, there are stories after stories in which people, by virtue of their guna and karma, which means by virtue of their own character and their actions, they moved from Shudra to Brahman, to Kshatriya to Brahman, from Brahman to Kshatriya, and they were known as such. That, for example, there was a king, his name was Vishwamitra. So he was a Kshatriya, and he protected his kingdom very well and accumulated a large region of India as his kingdom and accumulated a lot of wealth. But towards the end of his reign as king, he became very disenchanted with the material wealth and the possessions and the corresponding responsibilities, and he became basically a renunciate and devoted his life to the study of the scriptures and developing his own knowledge of the spirituality and the scriptural material. He became Vishwamitra Rishi, which means a seer and a Brahman. And there are examples like that all over our religious literature of people moving freely from one class of the society to another class purely based on their guna and karma, that means their characteristics and their actions. So these were not silos. These became silos and became caste system in the British time, because the purpose of the British was to keep the Indian population divided and at each other's throats so that the country would never unite, because they were really afraid that if the country became united under the banner of Hinduism, they will be a force to reckon with in the whole world, and the British Empire had no way of fighting that. And therefore, they systematically divided the society into a cobbler class and a merchant class and a weaver class, and these became their castes. And even within those castes, they became, they had gradations of a higher caste weaver and a lower caste weaver and a higher caste cobbler and a lower caste cobbler and stuff like that. I mean, they did a number on the Hindu society. They also divided, they also systematically decimated and destroyed the Hindu system of education, which was Gurukul, which basically meant that the student went to live with the family of his teacher until the age of 24. From the age of 12 to 24, to study the scriptures and to study the craft that he had a natural inclination to. So some of them became Vaidyas, they studied Ayurveda. Some of them became builders, they studied the Stapatya Shastra, which means building science, and things of that nature. Some studied Dhanurved, which made them Kshatriya, which means Dhanurved is basically the art and science of archery. So that was the system, and it was an absolutely wonderful system of education. The British literally destroyed it and imposed the British system of education, and the Indian education system today, as a result of that, I can tell you in uncertain terms, is in complete shambles. It is so bad right now that 80% of the graduates of the system are not employable in whatever field they are in. That's how outrageously inadequate that education system has become right now. Okay, a little bit of our history of the religion. I said oldest religion known to man. I should say oldest continuously existing religions known to man. The religions have come up and disappeared in various parts of the world. I'm sure we know various different religions that came into existence in Europe and South America, in Central America, in North America for that matter, also in Southeast Asia and in Far East. But they came into existence, existed for a certain amount of time, and they are no longer followed as religions in their own original regions. Hindu religion happens to be the one religion that has existed continuously, and we can easily trace the original scriptures back to 10,000 BC. The Rigveda, the quintessential reference for the Hindu religious scriptures, some of the verses in the Rigveda go back to 10,000 BC. And the Rigveda that exists today came into existence in this form about 3400 BC. And I hope you can see my book.
You can.
And this is the compilation of the Rigveda, which has about 10,000 verses in it. And the Rigveda is basically a collection of hymns, many of them for fire sacrifice, and essentially all of them as prayers to various different Vedic gods. Okay. And it contains verses that are used for various different sacraments in our Hindu religion, including the naming ceremony, the thread ceremony, the wedding, Hindu wedding, and the final rites of the people who have passed away. And of course, many other Vedic rituals are included. The hymns for them are included in the Rigveda. Hindu religious literature is enormous. Before I say anything about that, let me first say that Hindu religion is not based on one book, sayings of one prophet, or one single god, because Hindu rishis, the seers, realize that each one of us is a very unique person. Each one of us has his own likes and dislikes, and therefore one size fits all, or one god or one prophet fits all cannot be a proper religion. And therefore our Hindu religion is a collection of religious literature that can be divided, broadly speaking, into these classes that I have managed to come up with based on my reading of the material. There are 4 basic Vedas, and the word Ved itself means knowledge. So basically, Rigveda consists of 2 words, Rik and Ved, and the Sanskrit system of grammar and joining the words make it into a single word, Rigved, and it basically means knowledge of the Rig. Rig means the hymns associated with sacrifice and other religious literature. Yajurveda is a subset of the Rigveda, and Yajuhu means the yajna or the fire sacrifices that are performed by us Hindus, and it basically means the knowledge of the verses associated with the fire sacrifice. Samaveda is also a subset of Rigveda, and Samaveda consists of the science and the art of music. It basically tells you how to recite the various different hymns in the Rigveda in a musical fashion. And the music, science, and art is included as a part of the Samaveda. And Atharva Veda also is another subset of Rigveda, and it consists of many different verses that provide us knowledge of certain human conditions. And Ayurveda, the science of Hindu medicine, is a part of the Atharva Veda. Okay. Now, each one of these Vedas have appendices, and these appendices are known as Upanishads. And what these Upanishads are really a student, a Shishya, sitting at the feet of his guru, teacher, and asking a guru a question, and the guru responding to that question based on the ability of the student to understand and appreciate the answer. It's very simple, because as you can see, an elementary student is not going to be able to do college mathematics right after coming out of elementary school. And he needs a certain amount of preparation. A fourth grade student is not in a position to read Shakespeare or similar high level literature. He needs to go through a certain amount of preparation before he is able to read and understand and appreciate the beauty of that literature, or understand the beauty of that mathematics if he's going to do partial differential equations. So a certain amount of preparation is required, and that kind of preparation is required for our religious scriptural studies also. And therefore, when the Shishya, the student, asks a question to the Guru first takes into account the level of the preparation of the student to receive the answer of that question, and then he will either answer the question or tell the student to do certain more preparation to be able to understand and appreciate the answer to that question. As a matter of fact, there is an Upanishad which is called Prashnopanishad, and Prashna means question. It is an Upanishad which consists of questions asked by 7 different students of the teacher. And the teacher actually, when the student asks the first question, the teacher says, here is a vrata or a particular religious ritual that I want you to carry out for the next whole year. After you have done this honestly and properly for a whole year, come back to me, and then I will decide whether you are ready to get the answer to the question or not. That is the kind of dialogue that used to take place between the student and the teacher. And right now, we know of the existence of 108 of these student-teacher dialogues, although we do not really know how many of them actually existed, because a whole lot of literature, Hindu religious literature, was literally burned down by the Muslim invaders and the British rulers of India, because they did not want that knowledge to be seen by the rest of the world. It was so profound and it was so marvelous that they were actually jealous of the Hindus. They did not like them to have that kind of knowledge, and they literally destroyed it. They not only destroyed the Hindu religious knowledge, they destroyed some of the Hindu knowledge associated with the other material subjects in this world, including metallurgy, including chemistry, including weaving of the clothes. You know, there is a very special kind of silk cloth that used to be weaved by Hindu artisans, and they use their thumbs to be able to do that. And believe it or not, British actually cut off the thumbs of these people so that they would never be able to produce that kind of cloth. That is how callous and how destructive the British rule of India was. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. So the Upanishads are part of the Vedas. Then the Hindu traditions of worship rituals are in what are called agamas, and agamas are basically the books that tells you that, okay, if you want to perform this particular ritual, these are the steps, these are the items required, these are the utensils required, this is the preparation required, you perform it this way. Puranas are storybooks, or that's what they are called. But those storybooks are extremely profound. They contain knowledge that people are only now being able to decipher it and understand how profound these stories, which are considered to be symbolic stories, but these contain knowledge in a very profound manner. And people who are both astrophysicists by profession now and interested in the ancient Hindu literature are now putting the two together and realizing how profound our Puran, our storybooks are. Shastras are basically sciences, and they, like I said, they contain everything: physics, chemistry, mathematics, astronomy, astrophysics, and also engineering, the science of building temples, science of building buildings, science of building forts. They also contain things like science of archery. They contain science of administration, science of ruling, science of everything that a human society requires for its sustenance and for its proper functioning. So all these shastras contain all of these things. Itihas, simply translated, means history. And the two Hindu epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, are considered history, although some people question that. But I will say that they are histories, because there is a Hindu astrophysicist, astronomer, who decided to study the events described in both Ramayana and Mahabharata. And in those descriptions, there are positions of the stars and planets in the sky described, that a particular planet was in this sign of zodiac, or this particular star was in this portion of the sky. What this scientist tried to do was to figure out whether that could actually happen, whether that planet was in this sign of zodiac at some time in the past, or this particular star was in this portion of the sky at some time in the past. And the science of astronomy being governed by second order differential equations that are time dependent, and I'm an aerospace engineer and I've studied some of the subject myself, so I can describe it in technical terms. The equations are even functions of time, which means that we can go back in time as we can go forward in time. And therefore, what this guy did was to go back in time and to find out if a time did really exist when this particular planet, like Jupiter or Saturn, was in that particular sign of zodiac. And lo and behold, he actually found that that could actually happen. And that must have happened. And therefore, based on that, he figured out how long ago Ramayana and how long ago Mahabharata could have actually taken place. Okay. And it turns out that Mahabharata happened about 5,500 years BC, and Ramayana happened 7,000 years BC. That means these are actually events that happened 7,000 years from before current time in Mahabharata, and about 9,000 years before the current time in Ramayana. So these are therefore histories. These are not legends or just mythological stories. So these are therefore itihasas. This is something that actually happened. And if you follow the discoveries these days, they have actually found the city of Dwarka drowned under the sea on the western coast of the state of Gujarat in India. And they have found evidence of the Saraswati river that is mentioned in our Rig Veda, which means that the river actually existed, and it is not something of a figment of imagination of some people under some kind of trance. It actually did exist at one time. It dried up as a result of the retreat of the glaciers, and the street changed course after that, after some time, but it is not something imaginary. Now, I mentioned Bhagavad Gita here specifically, and you might have heard this term. Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata, and it is actually a dialogue between Lord Krishna, who is the incarnation of Lord Vishnu at that time of Mahabharata, and Arjun, one of the 5 brothers on whose side Lord Krishna decided to help out during the Mahabharata war. The reason I pulled it out separately to mention here is that it is a quintessential summary of the Hindu religious philosophy. And a lot of time when people ask a question, what is something like a Bible in Hindu religion? A single book, and the Bhagavad Gita is equivalent to the Bible in the Christian religion. Bhagavad Gita is the so-called Hindu Bible, although I do not like to describe it as a Bible, because Bible is a complete book by itself. Bhagavad Gita is a quintessential summary of the Hindu religious philosophy that is actually a dialogue between Lord Krishna and his devotee Arjun on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where the Mahabharata war took place. So that's why I think it requires a very special mention. And let me show you something. If you write the Bhagavad Gita in its original, you can put it in a book this size. All 18 chapters, original Sanskrit verses. But if you want to if you want to understand it in your own language, it requires a tome of this size to really parse the words, to separate the words, and to really understand the profound significance of each and every word. And there are various different Hindu saints and Hindu scholars who have written very profound volumes on the philosophy contained in the Bhagavad Gita. The other book I wanted to show you is really this one, which is called Bhagavad Gita. It's written, of course, in the Devanagari script, so you may not be able to obviously read it unless you are familiar with it. But it is, it says, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, or the science of the law of action. Karma Yoga Shastra is another name of the Bhagavad Gita, and what it emphasizes is karma. You act. To act is your right, not necessarily to the fruits of your actions. And it has been brought out by this particular author. His name is Lokmanya Tilak, a freedom fighter during the freedom struggle of India against the British rule. And actually he wrote that book when he was imprisoned in Mandalay in today's Myanmar or Burma for 50 years. He was given a prison sentence of 50 years in the year 1910, and he had a card in front of his that he had to wear that said 1960. That's where the British were going to release him from freedom, from the prison. And therefore, what he did was he really harassed the British to give into giving him some of the old Hindu religious books, and based on that he came to a realization that the Bhagavad Gita was really a Karma Yoga Shastra, science of the law of action. And then he started writing this book in the prison. While he was in the prison there, it turned out that 3 years after he was in prison, the British were forced to release him. He couldn't, there was no way the British would have been able to put him in the prison for the next 50 years anyways. So the British were compelled by the Indian freedom struggle to release him from the prison. And then this book came into publication. And in my opinion, this is absolutely the best book as a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And I will go further and say that any book on any subject, whether it's aerospace engineering or paleontology or biostatistics, if that book passes the standards set by this Bhagavad Gita of Lokmanya Tilak, then it is a book to be reckoned with. Otherwise, it is just an ordinary book. That is how comprehensive, profound this commentary on the Bhagavad Gita is. Anyways, let's move on. Now, current situation. About a sixth of the world population, about 1 billion people, are Hindus. Most of them are in India, and small portions all over the world, about 1.5 million in the United States. And the country of Guyana actually is a Hindu majority country, but the British do not allow the Hindus to take the power even if they win the majority election. The situation is in Guyana today is an incredibly corrupt situation where the Hindu majority, even after winning the elections, are prevented from taking the power, the political power that they have rightfully won in free and honest elections. It's a very strange situation. The Hindus are becoming aware of it now, and hopefully the situation will change in the foreseeable future. But that's just a hope for the time being. It is not quite happening just yet. Now, we have been talking about Hindu, but what is the Hindu? What is the Hindu religion is really what I want to address at this time. And like I said, there are many different types of religious literature in our Hindu religion. And they are called by various names. They are called agamas or shastras or puranas, or they are also called smritis. And smriti literally means what is remembered. And therefore, if a name is attached to a smriti, like the Manu Smriti here, it means that something that is written by a rishi or seer named Manu, and he has provided certain directions for the society in his treatise called Manu Smriti. And in that, he defines the Hindu dharma, which is originally the Sanatana dharma, in this particular manner. Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat, satyam priyam, priyanchana nritam bruyat, esha dharma sanatanaha. What it means is there, speak the truth, speak what is pleasant, do not speak the unpleasant truth, speak the present only if not untrue. And this, according to him, is the definition of the Sanatana Dharma. If you just look at the words superficially, it may not mean much. But if you try to put this thing in action, it is a very profound statement, and it is really the law of being, the law of human behavior. And that is the definition of the Hindu religion according to Manu Smriti. And all the religious literature, Hindu religious literature, is really not anything but how one should behave, how one should conduct based on one's character and the course of action. And that has to be a course of action based on righteous behavior and a life of duties and responsibilities. And this captures it in a very profound manner, in my opinion. Now, fast forward to the 20th century, and the question of who is a Hindu, who is a follower of the Sanatana Dharma, came in front of the Supreme Court of India. And the Supreme Court of India debated that question and finally settled on the definition as given by the author of this book, Lokmanya Tilak. And the word Lokamanya itself means that he has been accepted as a leader by the people. That was the title given to him. His full name was Bal Gangadhar Tilak, but he was always known as Lokamanya Tilak. That means people's accepted leader, whose last name was Tilak. So this is the definition that is accepted by the Supreme Court of India. Reverence of the Vedas, recognition of the fact that means and ways to salvation are diverse, realization of the truth that the number of gods to be worshipped is large, even though the ultimate reality is only one. We can worship God in various different forms. It doesn't necessarily mean that there are that many different gods. It means that the ultimate reality is the same. We just worship it in different ways. Okay. These are the distinguishing features of the Hindu religion. In 1995, July 2nd, the Supreme Court accepted this as an adequate and satisfactory formula for someone being a Hindu. Like I said, the Hindu religion does say that there is only one truth, one ultimate reality, but we, being different, unique people, do not necessarily approach that single truth in the same exact manner. And therefore, I'm just quoting half a line from the Rig Veda, which we talked about just a moment. It says, Ekam sad vipra bahuda vadanti. The truth is one. The wise call it by many different names. Now, my name is Pradip. I am the son of my parents. I am the husband of my wife. I am the father of my children. I am the grandfather of my grandchildren. I am uncle of somebody else. I am a nephew of somebody else. I am a cousin of somebody else. All of these people call this person Pradip by various different names. But I remain the same. I do not change. I am the same Pradip that my parents decided to call. But I may be something for somebody else. My friend may call me by some name. My cousins may call me by some other name. My parents may have their own loving name for me. My enemies may have their own hating name for me, and things of that nature. But I remain the same. Same thing applies to the universal reality. The truth is one. Based on my inclination, I call it Vishnu, I call it Shiva, I call it Brahma, I call it Saraswati, I call it Lakshmi, I call it Ram, I call it Krishna, or whatever other name, Ganesh, and other names I may have for them. And I worship that reality, that ultimate reality in that form. Maybe I call him Ganesha, who has a face of an elephant. Maybe I call him Hanuman, who has a face of a monkey. And maybe I call him Vishnu, who has 4 arms and has 4 different kinds of items in his hand. Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma. Shankha is a conch shell, Chakra is the discus, Gada is the mace, and Padma is a lotus. So he has these 4 different things in his 4 hands. And he is the protector of the universe. So I may worship him as a protector of the universe. I may worship his incarnations on this earth. One of them is Rama in Ramayana. The other one is Krishna in the Mahabharata. I may worship him in those forms. But I worship the same ultimate reality in this universe. Ekam Sat. The truth is one. I just worship it in various different forms. As a matter of fact, being a Hindu in this society here, far away from India, I perform worships of various different deities depending upon the people's needs. So one day I'll perform the worship of Vishnu, the other day I'll perform the worship of Shiva, the third day I'll perform the worship of Ganesha, and so forth. And at home, I have a setup where I have 5 main deities in my setup, and I will perform the worship of one of them as the main deity on that particular occasion. So us Hindus are very broad-minded. We do not think that there is only one way to salvation. There are ways of salvation by worshipping the deity of your choice. The deity of your choice in your unique way, as long as you follow the path of duties and responsibilities of righteous behavior. That is the beauty of our religion. It does not exclude anything or anybody. As a matter of fact, we'll come to that point in just a moment. Here are 9 core beliefs in the Hindu religion. One supreme being, Ekam Sat. There is one ultimate reality. We all revere the Vedas, and we also consider that they are divine products. As a matter of fact, the rishis who produced these verses, these hymns in the Vedas, they never attached their name to these verses. Their disciples, their followers told us who the rishi was, who came up with this particular hymn or this particular verse for the worship of whatever. They actually said that this is not us who is giving you this knowledge. It is the good Lord through our meditative powers has given us this knowledge, and we are just being the instrument to transfer this knowledge to you. We are not the originator, the creators of this knowledge. It's the good Lord who has given us this knowledge. And the Vedas contain that knowledge by the rishis, and therefore the Vedas are divine scriptures according to us. We also believe that the universe, the Vishwa that we see around us, the physical universe that we see around us, goes through the process of creation, preservation, and dissolution. The modern cosmology has what is called the Big Bang theory. At time t equal to 0, there was an enormous explosion, and out of nothingness came this universe. And this universe, according to the present astronomical observations, is continuously expanding, and ultimately our night sky will be dark because everything else will be so far away from us that we will not see anything. And our night sky, if we still exist at that time, will be a completely dark sky. Hindus believe that maybe this happened. There was, at some instant of time, the Big Bang occurred. But this universe came into existence, let's say, at that instant of time. It is now being preserved by the good Lord. Eventually, it will end in what is called a Mahapralay, the great deluge. And in that deluge, it will be dissolved back into this singularity that happened in the past at time t equal to 0, and the whole universe will come back into existence again in another Big Bang. So the universe is going to go through the cycles of creation, preservation, and destruction ad infinitum. So the universe is anadi. That means it is really without a beginning, it is without a middle, and it is ananta. It does not have madhya, and it does not have anta. That means it does not have a beginning, it does not have a middle, it does not have an end, but it goes through cycles. It goes through processes of creation, preservation, and dissolution cyclically again and again. And that gives the rise to the next two concepts of karma and reincarnation. That concept of creation, preservation, and destruction applies to something that is in me. Who is me? Am I a collection of these molecules that consist of carbon, hydrogen, calcium, sulfur, phosphorus, iron, and whatever other minerals that may exist in this universe? Or am I something beyond that? Am I something that is using this body as a means to achieve a certain amount of aim or a certain aim in this life? That's where the law of karma comes in, because I am not this body. I am somebody else. I am doing some work through this body. The results of this work are what is called karma. And those karmas are like two different bank accounts that I have for myself. One is a account of good karma or good actions, and the other one is of bad karma or bad actions. I enjoy the fruits of my good karma and I suffer the consequences of my bad karma. These two accounts do not negate each other by coming together. Each one of them has to be paid for, so to speak, by its own consequences. Good consequences of good karma and bad consequences of bad karma. They may happen right in this life, or may happen in the next life, or 10 or 50 or 100 lives from now on. That is the law of karma. The karma will be paid for, whether it is paid for today in this life or in the next life or not, but it will be paid for. That is the law of karma. And that is tied to the law of incarnation, because I am born in this manner in this life. I may be born as another human being in the next life. I may be born as somebody else in the next life. And maybe 5 lives from now, I may be born again as a human being. And at that time, if the time is right, I will enjoy the fruits of my action that I carried out in this life, and the fruits of bad actions that I may have carried out in this life at that time. So the law of karma and law of incarnation are tied together. There are 3 different kinds of karma. One is called sanchita karma, which means the 2 accounts, the good accounts of good karma and bad karma. The other one is called prarabdha karma. That means the karma that you are going to receive the fruits of in this life, good or bad, because the time is right for you to receive that fruit. And the third is the kriyamana karma, which means the karma that you are producing now in this life. The actions that you are taking in this life that will produce fruits of that action right here now, or maybe in some future life. So that is the kriyamana karma. So these are the 3 different kinds of karma, and they all contribute to your prarabdha and sanchit karma. The actions that do not bear fruit right now become part of your sanchita karma, and that sanchit karma becomes prarabdha if the time is right in a future life. And therefore the Hindu is never afraid of death. Death is simply a transition. Death is not the ultimate sentence that you have to suffer through for whatever comes next, for the rest of whatever that comes next. That is the beauty of Hindu religious philosophy. And we also believe that divine beings with supernatural characteristics and powers exist in the worlds that we are unable to see in this human life. After all, our sense of hearing and our sense of seeing, vision, is severely limited. I am pretty sure you know that we hear only certain frequencies with our eyes, with our ears, and we see only a few frequencies with our eyes. There are frequencies that are much higher and much lower that we do not hear or do not even perceive. Our microwave communication, our X-rays, our gamma rays, those are the rays, they have frequencies that are extremely high compared to what we can perceive. And then the infrared and lower gravitational waves that have frequencies that are also extremely low that we cannot perceive. So there is a whole realm of world of the existence that we are simply not able to perceive with our senses, with their limited abilities. And therefore us Hindus believe that divine beings exist in those realms, in those unseen worlds, and we commune with them through our personal worships or through our community worships in the temples. To understand all these things by yourself is not always, or I would say most of the time, possible, and therefore an enlightened teacher, a self-realized teacher is essential to guide you along the path properly. Once again, as I said before, based on your level of preparation to receive that kind of education. Very important point, and that is why the Hindu system of education was based on Gurukul. Guru means teacher and Kula means family. Family of the Guru was providing the education to the society, and that was the best system as far as I can concern compared to any other European system that was imposed on the India that was there in the 18th, 19th, and 20th century. And it was a very bad thing to happen to India. By virtue of the fact that Hindus considered that we are human, we are beings that will go through the cycle of life and death multiple times, and not necessarily as a human being every single time, all life is sacred for Hindus. No matter whether it's a cow or a horse or a dog or a cat or an elephant, every animal, a tiger or a lion, they are all sacred and they are to be treated properly. It does not mean that under certain circumstances you have to kill some of these animals. It does not mean that you do not do that. But life as a general rule is a very sacred life. As a matter of fact, our Hindu gods have the animals as their special favorite animals. For example, Vishnu has Garud or eagle. Shiva has a bull. Saraswati has a swan. Ganapati has a mouse, or Ganesh has a mouse. These are some of the examples of their favorite animals. Lord Krishna has a cow. So these are the various different animals that are favorites of our Hindu gods. The reason for doing this is simply to integrate the environment with the religion, to have reverence for all life as such. For that matter, our Hindu gods have their favorite trees, their favorite leaf, their favorite flower. And see, this is how the Hindus have integrated the environment in their religious practices. Because when we worship a certain god, we offer his favorite fruit, his favorite leaf, his favorite flower as our item of worship. So we basically consider the entire universe and everything that exists in it as sacred. And to codify that, we have come up with religious rituals that use these various different items in the worships. And therefore, we are very, very aware of the sacredness of our trees, of our flowers, our fruits, our leaves, our animals, our rivers, our oceans. The ocean has a god associated with it. The rivers have names and they are considered goddesses. So us Hindus are extremely reverent of the environment in which we live it. And we also therefore think that one single religion, one single book, one single prophet is not enough to teach you the path to salvation. It is like, I have to bring up this subject. There is an astronomer whose name is Robert Jastrow, and he wrote a book. And the title of the book is God and the Astronomers. I don't know if you have heard about this book or this astronomer, but it may be very useful to look up the book and at least go scan through that book. I purchased that book more than a quarter century ago. And here is how it describes what is going on in the field of astronomy and cosmology and in the field of spirituality. He describes this quest as trying to climb a mountain. And we are trying to, the astronomers are trying to climb the mountain from one direction and to reach the peak. And the peak is the ultimate knowledge, the knowledge of ultimate reality. And the spiritual people are climbing it from the other direction, and they are trying to reach the same goal of getting the ultimate knowledge. What Robert Jastrow says is that as these astronomers using their telescopes of various different kinds and various different instruments are studying the cosmology, the origin of the universe and everything, as they think that they are approaching the peak and the peak is in their sight, what they see is that the spiritual people have actually managed to climb the mountain from the other side and actually are closer to the peak. This is how profound his statement is. The Hindu seers, by virtue of the powers of their meditation and concentration and thinking, deep thinking, have found the answers to some of the questions that the astronomers are only being able to approach. The Hindu astronomers knew the existence of the equinoxes, the existence of the fact that the moon goes through 27 different signs of zodiac. This year can be divided into 12 different months and 6 different seasons. It knew the existence of the planets like Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. Actually, these planets have Sanskrit names. And how did they know? There is no evidence of the existence of any kinds of optical or radio telescopes at that time, thousands of years ago. But they did know the existence of these planets. They knew that the axis of the Earth goes through a 26,000 year cycle of what is called precession. And that is how we get into the various different equinoxes, and the sun is in the northern hemisphere 6 months of the year, and in the southern hemisphere in the other 6 months of the year, and we have different seasons as a result of that. The Hindu astronomers, rishis, knew that there was this 26,000 year cycle of the precession of the axis of the Earth. How did they know? How did they find that out? We don't know any existence of any astronomical measurements of the kind that are being made today. But they knew it based on the way they observed various different stars in the sky and the motion of the various different planets in the sky. The planet Saturn is called Manda. Manda means slow. And if you look at today's astronomy, it is the slowest moving planet in the sky as we can see. And that is why it is called Manda. Manda is a slow planet. Hindus knew it thousands of years ago. That's how advanced they were. Us Hindus, as a result of these various different religious philosophies and various different understanding, the basic understanding of human behavior, have what is called the equivalent of the 10 commandments in our Hindu code of conduct. And actually we have 20 of them, not just 10. 10 of them are constraints. They are called yama. They are basically limitations on how you should behave. And the other 10 are called niyamas, or observances. That means those are part of your everyday actions, everyday work. Observances that you should be observing as you conduct your daily life. And I'm sure you can read them. I'm getting it a little too long here, so I'm going to try to keep everything short. And these, I mean, these are obvious things, you know, just like thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wealth or neighbor's wife, and things of that nature that the 10 commandments in Christian religion are. These are our 20 commandments of ahimsa, non-injury, truthfulness, honesty, not stealing, always have good conduct, divine conduct, patience, steadfastness, compassion, and all that. You can read these things. And some of the observances, that means you should always give, that is called dana. You should always have faith, shraddha. You should always worship the good Lord. You should always listen to the scriptures. You should have good cognition. That means your ability to recognize good and bad should be there. You should always conduct yourself with sacred vows, recite the scriptures, and be austere in your lifestyle. That means you should do tapas. Very important and very profound. It is very difficult for us to follow all 10 of the observances and all 10 constraints every day in your life, because human life in this Kali Yuga, in this 21st century, is extremely difficult, extremely complicated, extremely distracting from the path that we have prescribed in these 10 observances and 10 constraints. But to strive is our duty, according to our Hindu rishis. Swami Vivekananda was a Hindu monk who came to the United States in 1893, actually a little before 1893. He was sent here without a penny in his pocket to attend the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. After he got down and started literally walking the streets, not knowing what to do next, a good-hearted woman saw this Hindu monk in his saffron clothes, and basically asked him what he was doing at that time in the night on the streets of Chicago. And when he told her that he really was a Hindu monk, and the Hindu monks are poor, without any material possessions of them, she took him under her shelter, gave him a place to live, and made sure that he was able to go to the conference, the World Parliament of Religions, and there he addressed the conference, this World Congress. And believe it or not, he was an instant hit. And for the next 3 years, he traveled all over the United States, introducing the United States population to the Hindu religion. And here is his profound statement about what separates the Hindu religion from some other religions that are still prevalent in the human society here. Us Hindus think that every soul is potentially divine, unlike some other people who think that we are born sinners and we need salvation through some prophet, some god, some deity, some book. Hindus basically think that we are all potentially divine. Our goal in this life and whatever lives that we may live hereafter is to manifest that divinity within us by controlling our nature externally and internally through means of work or worship or psychological control or philosophy. And these are the various different names of the yogas: Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Prema Yoga, Raja Yoga, and all these are the different names that Swami Vivekananda translated in simple English for people to understand, or a combination of all them, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, or Raja Yoga and Jnana Yoga together, parts of Bhakti Yoga and part of Jnana Yoga and things of that nature, to reach and to manifest that divinity. And everything else that you do associated with it, although to some extent important and necessary in the beginning stages, these are all secondary, because our unmanifest reality does not require any of these things. Our unmanifest reality is beyond material properties, material existence. And therefore, we have to do a very deep thinking, meditation, and essentially through these means have to understand for ourselves this unmanifest reality. As a matter of fact, our Hindu saints say that you just have to experience it yourself. Don't ask me to describe it. I have seen it, I have experienced it, but I am not in a position to tell it to you what it is. You just have to feel it, experience it yourself. That is our Hindu religion. The unmanifest reality has to be manifested within, but it is beyond words. You cannot describe it in human terms at all. And once you reach that stage, you reach a stage what is called Sat Chit Ananda, the truth, the mind, and the happiness, which are all divinely combined together in one single Satchidananda. You might have seen this term or heard this term from some other people also, if you have followed our Hindu religion before. And I think this captures the Hindu way of looking at divinity and the Hindu way of attaining that divinity through practices in this life and maybe the life beyond. Okay, I think I have gone through this features of Hindu religion, but basically what I want to say is that our Hindu religion, here I want to capture one of the basic things of our Hindu religion. Hindus never proselytize. We are not here to spread our religion. We are here to follow our religion, and if somebody else wants to follow our religion, we welcome them. Hindu India is the only country on the face of this earth that freely welcomed people from other continents and other countries and managed to accommodate them in the Hindu society. Hindus have Syrian Christians, Hindus have Jews, Hindus have Parsis, and they have become part of the Indian society now, to such an extent that Parsis are Indians now. They are not from Persia anymore. They are Indians. And Parsis have reached great heights in this society in all kinds of fields. Tata, you must have heard the name, a huge industrialist. General Manek Shah, the field marshal of the Indian Army, was a Parsi. So this is the beauty of our society. We never told others to follow our religion. As a matter of fact, we allowed them to come into our country, settle in our country, and become part of our society. The Chinese ambassador to the United States said in so many words that India, and he's talking about the Hindu India thousands of years ago, ruled China for 10,000 years without sending a single soldier across the border. That is how the Hindu influence was spread in Asia on both sides, Eastern and Western, and as a matter of fact, I should say Northern, without fighting a religious war, because Hindu religion does not simply believe in spreading the religion by killing people and by forcing them to convert to Hinduism. It just does not exist. It says, follow your dharma, and your dharma is your righteous behavior based on morals and ethics. It's not something that is somebody told you to do, some mullah or some what should I say, some religious leader or some other following told that you should do this and that's why you should do. No, that's not it. And that's why if you can get a summary of the Bhagavad Gita, you will see that Lord Krishna has told Arjun on the battlefield that you should follow your dharma, and your dharma is determined by your character and your actions. And you are a kshatriya. Kshatriya is a warrior, and you should follow your dharma of a kshatriya. That was his basis. By virtue of the fact that each one of us is unique, we have multiple gods, goddesses, their children as gods, their devotees as gods, and they all mimic the human condition so that we can relate to it on a human level. And therefore, we consider them as a part of our society, but somewhat with something more superior, more profound than us, and therefore we worship them. They all represent the same ultimate reality for us. Like I said before, our Hindu religion is very tightly integrated with the environment. And I told you already that we have gods and goddesses with their favorite things. And these are the various different favorite things that they have. Hindu practice, maybe I should say a few words about Hindu practice in the United States. When I came to the United States in 1974, temples were hard to find, Hindu priests or Hindu religious leaders were hard to find, and people therefore took on the role of Hindu religious leaders and priests, and we started doing the Hindu religious sacraments and religious functions, first individually, then as families, and then as groups of families. And then when we became large enough of a group, we started renting facilities for our special functions because we could not accommodate ourselves into an individual's house. And then when we became large enough, like a few hundred families in a community, we felt the need for a temple and started building the temple. And like I said, in 1997, we built a temple here in Kalamazoo. Actually, we purchased a church that was on sale and converted into a temple. The church people sold that church because their congregation became so large that the facility was not big enough for them. So they bought a big facility, and when it became available, we purchased it, and when they remodeled it completely inside, and we made it into a temple, and it is really very well flourishing right now. I mean, it is flourishing so well that we actually go to India, find a qualified person as a priest, and bring him over here on a religious visa first, and then we get him the green card, and they become citizens of the United States. While we were in the process, like I told you, I was the officiating priest at the temple. At present in the United States, there are temples in at least 45 at my last count of the 50 states of the US, quite a few in Michigan, one each in Grand Rapids, Lansing, and Kalamazoo, and many in the Detroit area. Like I said, priests trained in India and here provide the religious services of all kinds. Like I said, we perform every ritual, including the Antyeshti or the last rites. In India, there are priests who specialize in certain aspects of Hindu religious rituals. So there are priests who will do only the weddings, who will do only the last rites, who will do only the naming ceremonies, and there are priests who will do only the Vrata Puja. That means there are certain religious rituals specific to certain gods, and they will perform only those rituals, and they will not perform anything else. But by virtue of the population, there is such a big demand for them that these priests can carry on their lives by performing these worships and receiving honoraria for those worships and for those rituals. Back in India, every temple has a main deity, and usually there aren't any other deities, other gods in that temple. Always, of course, Ganesha is there at each temple at the entrance, but the main deity is in the main sanctorum, and occasionally there will be other gods in smaller places of worship in the premises of that main temple. But there is only one. But in the United States, we come from all parts of India, and we are not large enough in numbers from one particular part of India, and therefore we have a very unique situation. And therefore we have temples like this temple here in Kalamazoo, where we have 7 main deities of in our religion, starting with the one here, which is Shiva, Ganesha or Ganpati, Lakshmi and Vishnu, Ram, Sita, Lakshman, his younger brother, and Hanuman, his devotee in front, Krishna and Radha, his consort, Durga, and Venkateshwar. So these are the main deities that are worshipped in India, all over the continent, and therefore we decided to install these 7 deities in our temple. And on days assigned specifically to those deities, we perform a very thorough, comprehensive worship of the deities. As a matter of fact, on the 21st of August, we performed the worship of Lord Ganapati as his arrival in our life. And on the 11th day after that, on the 31st of August, we performed a goodbye ceremony for him. And we said, we bid goodbye to him. with an invitation to come back at the same time next year. So that is how we perform these worships. We have Lakshmi Puja as a part of Diwali. We have Ram Navami as the 9th day of the first month of the Hindu calendar as the worship of Lord Rama. We have a couple of days before Ganesh Chaturthi, the birth of Lord Krishna. Durga is a deity we worship for various different reasons, including the fact that she removed some of the vicious demons from our life. And Venkatesha is a form of Vishnu that is worshipped in this form in the southern part of India. And Shiva is worshipped in the form of Shivalinga in basically all parts of India, right from Kashmir all the way down to Kanyakumari. And Lord Rama is also supposed to have performed the worships of Shiva before he took upon the task of freeing his wife Sita from the demon king of Lanka, today Sri Lanka, because he had kidnapped her and Rama needed to go and rescue her. So, I'm sorry, I'm going forward. Okay, so that basically is the conclusion of my main presentation on the Hindu religion. I like to conclude with the final hymn of the Rigveda. Rigveda, like I described earlier, is the ultimate reference for all our Hindu religious literature, Hindu hymns, and essentially all the verses that we recite in our Hindu functions. A lot of our suktas, which means a collection of hymns, and stotras, which means devotional prayers, come from the Rigveda. And the Rigveda is really a collection, also a large collection of hymns in the Rigveda for fire sacrifice. Actually, the first word in the Rigveda is Agni, which is fire. So we start with the fire sacrifice, and then most of our important Hindu religious sacraments and worships contain a component that is Havan, which is again a fire sacrifice. So we do that. Now, the reason I wanted to I want to end or conclude my presentation with the final hymn of the Rigveda, because this is the end of the Rigveda in a sense, but it is also a very important hymn, and it is in the Sanskrit language. It is called the Aikamatya Sukta, which means the unity hymn. Now you see, the Rigveda began about 10,000 BC. And in the current form, it came into existence 3400 BC, which is like 5,500 years before today. But at that time, our Hindu seers realized the importance of the unity of human being. The very existence and the sustenance of the human race depends upon the unity of the human being, not on the imposition of one's will or another, or fighting the one war or second war or third war with each other with the intention of imposing our will on somebody else. It does not depend upon that. It depends upon the unity of thought, action, and words of the entire mankind. And this is how they therefore ended the Rigveda. And I will recite this verse for you, and then on the next page I will show you what it means. Samsamidhyuvase vrushannagne vishwanyarya iraspade samidhyase sano vasunyabhar sangachadhvam samvadadhvam samvomanansi janata deva bhagam yatha purve sanjanana upasate Samano mantra samedhi samani samanam manassa chittamesha. Samanam mantramabhimantrayeva samanena vohavisha jumi. Samaniva apudes samana hridayaniva. Samanamastu vo mano yatha vastu sahasadi. You see this word here, samano, samanam, samani, samano, samani, many different times in this verse. It means the same. And what is the same that we are talking about? Rigved being the time where it was written, where fire sacrifice was one of the main activities. The first verse is here, which is the prayer of the fire. We gather around the fire. All the devotees come together, kindle the fire, and pray to the fire that the fire god bring us priceless treasure, the treasure not only of material wealth, but of spiritual divine wealth. We come together, we speak together, and we have our minds in harmony. As the God of the old, the Sanatana God, the fire God, we sit together in harmony to worship. We are united in our voices, united in our mind, united in our thought. Otherwise, and we speak to you and we make the sacrifice to you with one mind, speech, and action. And we also say in the final verse, let our aims be one and single, let our hearts be one and single, let our minds be in union, act peace with all, and so may you be with us. I mean, how profound do you think this is? This is 5,500 years ago, when our seers realized that human being must be united. We may all be different, we may have different skin color, we may speak different languages, but ultimately we are one human being, and we should strive for the unity and for the betterment of the human condition, not be narrow-minded with minor differences here and there, and therefore wage wars against each other and try to destroy each other. This is not the aim of human life. The aim of human life is unity. That's how they ended the Rigveda. I mean, I find this extremely significant and profound at the same time. How important it is for us Hindus to realize how important our work has been. Okay, so this concludes my presentation, but at the same time, I would like to bring up quickly a document that I have created, which I call an introduction to the Hindu religion. And I'll be more than happy to send you this PDF copy by email, because here I have not only the basic gist of my presentation of who is a Hindu and all that, but I have some references here and a little more finer and detailed classification of the Hindu religious literature. I have some distinguishing features of Hinduism. I basically said 4 here, 5 in my presentation, because I thought the last one in the presentation was also quite important. And then a few words about the Sanskrit language, which is the language of our scriptures and which is the language of our worship. And then a few mentions of the various different Hindu gods, Hindu saints and other famous personalities, and some resources that you may find useful. Swami Vivekananda, I mentioned, the Hindu saint who came to the World Congress. Some of the Hindu religion literature about the Hindu religion, Hindu epics, Hindu books on Hindus' customs and rituals, and for this day and age, some of the websites that deal with the Hindu religion. The first two here, the Hinduism Today and the Himalayan Academy, are actually based in Hawaii. A Swami named Shivaya Subramaniam Swami, a white American who went to Sri Lanka and Tamil Nadu, the southern state of India, and whose capital is Chennai or Old Madras. And he spent something like 18 years of his life converted to Hinduism, and his guru gave him the order to go back to the West and spread Hinduism. And that's how he came back to United States, first settled in California, and then decided to move to Kauai because of obvious reasons. And there he found a place on the island of Kauai. And now there is a temple that they are in the process of completing. It is built out of stones carved in Bangalore in India. And each one of those stones, after the carving is complete, is sent over to the by ship to Kauai and installed in its designated place, and they all fit together properly. The temple has a design life of 1,000 years, and it should be completed within a couple of years. And it is one of my desires to visit that temple before I leave this life, this human body. And I hope I'm going to try to do it next year, or at least within the next couple of years. So I will send you this document, and if you want, I will send you the PowerPoint presentation also.
Yes,
and
that'd be
I'm
great.
sorry I took all the time. So if you have any questions, please do ask. And if you want to set up another appointment like this, I'll be more than happy to have that appointment, and we can talk at length on whatever topic that you find interesting.
Thank you. No, I feel like you answered a lot of my questions. Maybe just some clarification. So with the different deities, you said, if correct, that they're expressions of the one God. Is that how you think about it?
The Hindu do realize that ultimately there is only one reality. But I am one person, you're another person, my wife for that matter, my children are different people, and they may find comfort in worshipping that one ultimate reality in some manifest form that they can relate to. And therefore we have so many different types of gods. There are 33 types of gods. There are not 333 million gods in Hindu religion. There are 33 types of gods. The word koti in the Sanskrit language get translated into 10 million, and therefore 33 koti becomes 330 million. That is not really the true and the correct translation of the word koti. Koti also means type, and there are 33 types of gods, and some other time I will describe to them if you want in more details. But the ultimate reality is one. I may find that reality in the form of Ganesha. Someone else may find that reality in the form of Venkateshwar. Someone else may find that reality in the form of Durga. So why shouldn't they have the freedom to worship that ultimate reality in that form? Why should I insist that since I worship my ultimate reality in the form of Ganesha, you should too? That is imposition. Hindu religion does not say that you should tell people how to worship the ultimate reality. It says you worship the ultimate reality in the form in which you are comfortable.
Okay.
Like your wife may be calling you with some name if you are married. Your children will call you with some other name. Your parents may have some other name for you. Your friends may have some other name for you. I have a different name for myself. My friends have a different name for me. My family will never use that name. So I am the same one person called Pradip that my parents decided to call Pradip, but my friends call me with one name. My children will call me by some other name and things like that, but I remain the same. People just call me by different name.
Right.
Same thing with the ultimate reality. You may call it Shiva, he may call it Vishnu, the other way may call it Ram, the third one another person may call it Ganesha, but it's the same ultimate reality.
Okay.
But therefore, you don't tell people how to worship or how to revere that ultimate reality. You tell them to revere that ultimate reality. If you find it comfortable to do it in the form of Ganesha, be my guest.
So then how do you understand the goal of worship? Is there
the goal of worship is to commune with the God that you find your ultimate reality in comfort.
Okay.
So when you are communing with say Ganesha, in the form of Ganesha with the element head and a big belly and all that, you are trying to reach that ultimate reality through the God Ganesha that you find comfortable to worship.
Okay.
That's how reach ultimate reality. Ganesha is the medium through which you reach the ultimate reality. Somebody may reach that ultimate reality through Ram, somebody else may reach it through Krishna, and so on.
So you use the expression salvation. You talk about salvation. Is that reaching that ultimate reality? Is that how you understand salvation?
Salvation is the reaching of the ultimate reality and getting out of this cycle of birth, life, and death.
Okay.
The human purpose of the human life is to perform action that will not leave any fruit of that action to be enjoyed or to suffer from. When you therefore performs actions that will not attach any consequence to you, you ultimately end up with nothing to enjoy and nothing to suffer from. When you reach that state, that is when you become one with the universal spirit and your soul is freed from the cycle of life and death, and you reach salvation, which is moksha in our Hindu religion.
Okay. So what is your response or your view of Jesus and of Christianity? What are your thoughts? What's your perspective?
I mean, see, Jesus is considered to be a son of God and a messenger of a God. Us Hindus don't have any particular problem with that. If you are comfortable trying to reach divinity through the teachings of Jesus and in some manner worshipping Jesus, it's perfectly all right with us. No problem at all. We just tell Christians to do their worship their way and leave us alone. We will do our worship our way. We do not impose our Krishna or Ganpati on you, and I don't want you to impose your Jesus or your other saints or deities or Mary or other saints that are mentioned in Bible upon us. You do it your way, we do it our way. We should have mutual respect. Mm-hmm. It's not that we should tolerate each other. We should actually have mutual respect. So if you want to do your worship on a Sunday in a church, by all means do it. Go there. Worship your God your way to the extent you want to do it, and enjoy the spirituality that you perceive that way. But if I want to worship Hanuman on a Saturday or a Tuesday, do not tell me that I am doing the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. I am worshipping the divinity I see in that form, and you are worshipping the divinity you see in that form, and let us respect each other's traditions and do not interfere with them.
Okay. So in the Bible, for instance, there's several passages that are very exclusivistic. Those are places where you would disagree.
I profoundly disagree with them.
Okay.
I do not think that any religion needs to be exclusive. Look what is happening in the society today. Do you want exclusivity of any kind based on anything at all? Color, skin, country of origin, sex. You don't want any exclusivity of any kind. And why there should be any exclusivity in the name of religion? Why me as a separate human being from somebody else is forced to worship in a particular manner, even though I may not be comfortable with it? Mm-hmm. So it's the same mountain that we are trying to climb. The astronomers are climbing this way. The spiritual people are climbing this way. We are all trying to reach the same goal. Let us do our way. Let them do their way. And we'll meet at the end. And then we'll all be happy. Once we reach that Satchidananda, we will not have any differences with each other. we will all be united in our thoughts, in our words, and in our action at that time. I don't think we subscribe to the view that all non-Hindus are heathens. And I think there is a statement somewhere in the Bible that is of the same effect. All non-Christians are heathens. That is, and the pagan religions are to be shunned and actually to be destroyed. This is not what we Hindus preach. We don't preach in the first place. We just leave people alone. We do not tell them what to do. We do not tell them how to do it. We do not say that this is the only way. That's the beauty of our religion. Our religion is all inclusive. Like I said, we have various different forms of gods, and all our gods are completely integrated with our environment. They include everything: a tree, a flower, an animal, a leaf, a river, an ocean, an ornament. All of these things are associated with our gods. Why? Because we want it to be all inclusive. We do not want to exclude anything or anybody out of our religion. But at the same time, we do not want to impose it on anybody either.
I see. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate your passion and all of the information you've shared with me and given me here, and look forward to looking at the document you're going to send. And yes, if you could send your PowerPoint too, that would be great as well.
Oh, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. And if there are any occasions where you have a meeting of religious people from various different religions and all that, or if you have more questions about Hinduism, or if your congregation has more questions about Hindu religion, I'll be more than happy to meet in person when the situation clears up, when the current situation that we have clears up. I'll be more than happy to sit with you folks in person and answer whatever questions I can.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Yes.